They got it.
Yeah, what?
I think we should read that one.
Somebody stepped on her,
Yeah.
twisted gut, or stepped on a leg, or,
Everything.
oh, stepped on it.
I thought
Yeah.
I was gonna
We
be
think.
figured out.
Right, feels better if you
Let's
just
have a
think
little
that's,
trouble.
there's nothing you can
You
do.
couldn't see anything wrong.
Yeah,
Other than the nose and the mouth.
oh, probably,
Mhm.
probably.
Shaving too. nice.
We had one, I think that got stepped on too, because it's got a swollen leg and we got stepped on.
Happens.
That's why it's nice now to open that gate up and get them away from each other a little bit.
Yeah. I keep them for like 3 days and I put them in the bathroom. I'm on a hill. But it dries off fast.
You're probably in more sand country though than we are.
In clay.
Oh, are you still in clay there?
Go to Kyle's
Yeah, right down the road.
in their sand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just changes out there.
In fact, the Larson place, part of it's gravel.
Oh, is that right?
I mean. Yeah.
Well, maybe you need to move your cows.
Well, they are there in the summer.
Yeah, you can just do your winter at the Larson farm.
Yeah.
Thanks for the text, by the way.
Well, I called my mom and it just dawned on me. I was like, made me think of you. I do the same thing. I'll call you back.
6 o'clock, I'll call meeting to order. Christina, you have the roll.
Yep.
I will dispense with the pledge, unless there's a disagreement with that. Before we approve tonight's agenda, I need to add Mr. Murray. He has a couple of questions that he would like us to take a look at on his property there on Summit Avenue.
Okay, so you're adding item C to new business.
Yes.
Okay.
We approve with the new agenda,
With the addition of.
with the addition of items.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, our PER report.
I will let Princess give you an update if there is one.
Not a ton. Our environmental team is still working on the ER. They're kind of in the queue process. I know they've submitted a lot of the solicitation letters to agencies. I think they had at the last meeting too, but they have a couple of month comment period or timeline where they can, agencies can comment. They're just kind of in that period right now. It's usually not until the end where they're commenting.
When does that period end again?
I feel like I think it's 60 days from the initial letter, and then if they, I think they can actually send something to opt to comment, and they get like another 30 days.
Okay.
And if they comment, then we can comment back. It's
So the initial period would be done at the end of this month or end of May?
Probably May,
Okay,
yeah. I'd have to look at that. And Chippewa, the State Historic Preservation Office, sounds like they've been really backed up, so.
oh yeah, because they've probably been doged.
No, that's state, not federal.
Yes. Oh, my mistake.
RD has, so RD is.
Yes, RD has, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just gonna write end of May comment period,
Yeah.
original comment period.
We'll get you definitely done.
Any other questions for? No? Move on. How's the library?
I have an update from Tony Gustafson on the project timeline. With his other projects going on, it looks like his start date now is getting pushed into June. I don't have an actual date yet.
Okay.
So I just got that this afternoon. I will give the library staff that update as well. I know Kelly is itching for that. And then hopefully by the May 7th meeting, I will have additional paperwork for the council to approve for that Board of Education grant as well. I've got some compliance paperwork
Okay.
that will have to get approved. And I'm not gonna be able to get to that before I'm done this week, so I'll try to get to it for you guys for May 7th.
You know, Christina,
Not on the library.
did they have another meeting, Don? No. No? Okay, thanks. On to Duck, the lion stuff.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, Nick gave me a business card to a gentleman that does boat restoration, fiberglass restoration, out of 10th Street. And I reached out to him and sent him the, KCI Restorations, document for the Lions Duck. Kind of gave him the whole spiel of where we started and where we're at right now. He is gonna digest that, try to come up with see if it's something that he can tackle, and he's gonna get back to me. He is definitely interested. It would have been easier for him if the duck could come off site, but I told him I don't think that that's an opportunity. So he's going to look at it, see if it's a possibility, and then maybe put some numbers together if it is, and provide that to me. And I'll share it with you guys. But the other document I gave you is I wanted to really like nail down how much money was left in the project, because people keep asking me how much you want to spend. And there's other people that are like, well, let's do more of a fundraiser. And I really want to get a good understanding about how much the whole project about fixing the Lions Duck is gonna cost before we jump into that next pool of needing to ask for more funding. So I did a new balance sheet for what we've spent so far and what we've gotten in donations from the very first time we started expending money on the project. So we've got about 16 grand right now set aside for this project.
Okay.
And we'll just have to see how much it'll cost us to get the other stuff done, because we did a lot of stuff with in-kind and volunteer work. On the old duck, it didn't cost us that much, so we do have some wiggle room now. That's all I have for that portion. I don't know if Don and Mike got looking at the Lions Duck base yet.
No.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? When it comes to the fundraising that you did, how do you know how much money you're spending on Lions Duck versus Little Duck?
When I sent the document out for the fundraiser, Misty, I did it for both ducks as one project.
Right.
I know that the site evaluations that were done were for both ducks together. And the materials that we spent for Cheryl and Nick to do their work was only on the old duck. So I've got that penciled into this balance sheet. It was very monetary for.
I was just wondering, like, if you did more fundraising, how would you know, like, are you gonna keep the pool together? Are you gonna try and split it, or? Especially if the fire department jump in?
Yeah, and I want the fire department to jump in on the old duck.
Yeah.
At some point. I would really like to see us do something better with either the turf or something else if we have the funding for it. Cause I did get Brian Pierce to give us a quote on concrete, but it was a lot more than what we thought we had for square footage. So I'm kind of backing off on that decision until we get the actual statues to a point where we're happy with them restored. The other part of that is we've also talked about building a facade for the old duck. And we haven't put that into motion yet, although the school has volunteered to build it for us, so that could also be a donation. So there's all kinds of little workings going on, and my real strong focus right now is just to get the statues back to where we need them to be, and then if there's any funding left over, then we can pretty up their surroundings.
So you think most of the money that you have in that will go towards the Lions Duck then? And maybe
If this gentleman that Nick found, his name's Matt. I forgot his business card. If some of it has to go to him, it
Yeah.
might eat that up. Yeah,
Well, at least he's interested. And local.
yeah, yeah. So it's a
We'd
great
have to
find.
pay for the lumber for the school and they'll build it, right?
The fire department kind of wanted to do like a memorial deal there for, what they say, wow,
Retires,
Retired.
yeah. Yeah, and he wants to move the flag from, the flag that's on the old telephone company's property must have something around the base that says something about the fire department, don't quote me.
Oh,
So he said they'd like to move that over.
that little cement,
Yeah, I think there's something that's
Oh.
on that,
okay.
so
I'm gonna-
they are working on it, I know they've been having some discussions.
Cool.
And the bell, they wanna put the bell over there too. So
Yeah.
I don't know how this is supposed to look with all this over there, but
I've always loved to see that bell outside, someone could see it. I'm always just worried about protecting it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think any monies that we divert, or are used for the old duck, the top priority should be the covering, the canopy, what I would call it, the pagoda, or whatever, because the most important thing, I think, with the condition of it is to protect it from the weather, rain, things coming down, so. I would put that ahead of, pavers, that type of thing,
Grass seed's cheap.
to the extent you can.
Any other questions, comments on the ducks? City Hall,
I have no updates on this,
still on hold.
so on hold. Well, it's already,
Birch and Beyond,
so I reached out to our city attorney in regards to the decision of the council for Taylor. The city attorney is recommending that the city vacate those two sections of right of way because they're, first of all, they're already being used by where the property is and the building that's there. So, and there's can't be really any development to the southwest of it because of the lowland. So I've provided to Taylor a petition for vacation. He needs to get 2/3 of the property owners to sign it for that petition. I gave that to him on like April 7th. I'm still waiting for him to bring that back. He'll need Levers and George Selesky to sign it. And then I can start the vacation process for those two sections.
is there anything to affect the power lines on those though?
Not what I'm worried about. He wanted to be able to improve them and use them.
Right, but if you're gonna vacate them, doesn't that mean you're essentially giving them to him?
No, we're just vacating it, so we don't, well. Essentially, yes. You said there's power on the alley.
I believe there's power lines that run through there.
We'll have to deal with that when the petition comes through. Because just because he puts the petition in doesn't mean it's approved.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, that's just, it's something I wanna state, because I mean,
yep, there's gotta be a consideration for everything.
that's why there's right of way, it's part of the right of way. Power companies obviously utilizing that.
And there's a power pole there that runs, power lines are that
Okay.
way. You need George's building over there and Tyler's.
So that's a separate entity, right?
Mhm,
It should technically have their own easement,
true,
so I want to confer with them, yeah.
yeah, you'd probably have to get it approved from Beltrami Electric then.
Well, that when the vacation of the right of way would not affect any easements that are in play.
We'll see what he comes back with first.
And the right of way on this aerial photograph is shown by the orange lines, is that correct?
I need to look at bonds, because I don't have it in
Yeah.
my pocket.
Yeah. And I'm correct in thinking that when we vacate a right of way, it's divided equally among the property owners on both sides. Is that correct?
Depends on you'd have to check with your attorney.
I'll check with the attorney.
Yeah. So do you think the requester is gonna be under the impression that he's getting that whole orange rectangle, or,
I don't know.
you know? Cause I mean, I believe I understand from the past that it is commonly divided equally. Half of
That's
it-
common, but not necessarily 100%
Right.
guaranteed, yeah.
Because there'd be two right of ways to be split, one would be the alley, one would be the street.
Street.
I think I was an adjoining property owner, I would want to get half of that.
Oh, it's George.
And
Yeah.
it's George.
Yeah.
So,
So, do you think he doesn't want half of it?
no, I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
I know Tyler's talked to the Weavers already, some, but
I'm not moving forward till I see paperwork.
Hmm.
And then I'll invest more money into attorney's fees.
sounds like a plan. On to the next one. Revision of ordinance.
So I've gathered several samples of other city ordinances. Don got Bemidji's and spoke with them. And I compiled a draft for your review to permit chickens. And honestly, I thought Parker's Prairie had the best policy or best ordinance to allow it. But I cannibalized a couple other cities. One of the things I thought was a good restriction besides the number of chickens was the number of permits. There were several cities that did not restrict the size of the property that the person owned, that they were on, but I put it in to 7,500 square feet, which is basically two lots. It's a 50 by 150. Parker's Prairies does an initial permit. And it's good for 2 years, and then renewal fees after that are cheaper. I thought that was a good way of compliance. I provided you guys several things that I thought could be optional, including if the chickens need to be banded. The maximum height of a run to be 6 feet. I mean, that kind of complies with most of our fence rulings. Sales of the eggs in most towns are prohibited. What else did I put in there that was optional? And then I gave you a sample of what a permit would look like, permit application would look like as well. And I'm looking for some feedback. Is if you guys like the draft and you want something changed, that's fine. I'm not going to put together a public reading of the ordinance until the draft is where the city is comfortable with it.
I know in subdivision 2.2, you're limiting the location of chickens to R1 zones.
That's residential, yeah.
So what about residential, single-family residential premises in B1 zones? Those persons can't have chickens?
I didn't say that. Everything here is is optional, Ron.
Well, when I file my permit, I'm B1. I'm a
Okay.
B1.
So we need to note that, that's fine. Just because it's in text doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
it's gospel.
That's why I'm asking.
We can omit the zone language and just write single family residentials.
Just looking at, there's a lot of B2 and B3 over there.
Yeah, that is. Oh,
And I didn't see anywhere where I seen it when they abandoned their chickens.
I did.
I didn't.
There was one city sample I sent you guys that did have it in there, so. If you don't want the banding on there, it can be omitted.
No,
I know it's a cost.
I think the Parker Spurgeon one did say that.
That's probably where I got it. I don't remember. I got like 5 samples, so. So do you want the banded language in there or not?
Well, the thing I'm looking at is if you have your chickens in their chicken coop and their chicken run. And it's built to how it's supposed to be done. I know that's not always correct. You shouldn't have to, if you ban your chicken, what good is that gonna do?
That's why I'm asking you.
You know,
Pigs for chickens,
I'm not gonna raise the chickens. I know you want to, so you're the expert as far as I'm concerned. I've never raised a farm animal in my life.
I'm gonna guess that it's not gonna be really necessary, because I think whoever you're living next to is gonna know you had chickens, and they're gonna know whose chickens they are.
Okay, so we can omit subdivision 2.5.
But if you get into, if your chickens get mixed up.
Every
with other
time they
people's
breathe,
chickens,
they'll know.
you know,
Usually your chickens know who you are.
you get one.
Like you don't.
otherwise I didn't see too much other stuff in there, but. Getting rid of the chicken waste, some people might want to. One thing about that is, some people might want to pile it up. And compost it for a little bit and then spread it on the garden or whatever. So. That's something that I
Do you think that's acceptable?
put chicken waste on your garden.
Yeah,
Yeah,
piling it up and composting it.
well, I mean, some people have compost in their yards, leaves and,
Right?
celery tops and whatever.
What are you doing? It starts stinking.
Well,
Mhm.
Oh,
But no, it's just something that I. I guess,
Well, if you're gonna have the waste, whatever you're using in your pen, or it should be gotten rid of.
yeah, straw, that's why I always use straw in my
So
house.
just, it can be hauled away. It did happen to say that removing a dead chicken or disposal of a dead chicken.
Yeah.
Just for fun, probably should. Cause it says what acceptable means are of disposal.
Mhm. A lot of that was in this U of M extension file too.
And that's what the city of Bermuda said.
But, and all of them, okay, it did say that all those options were off-site options. So you have to remove them, I didn't. Cause I also read there, incineration, rendering, or composting, I don't think anybody wants composting chickens in their yard. At least I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, if you have a chicken that's dying, you're probably gonna put that plastic bag and get rid of it.
Okay. I mean, it'll be, that was the other thing I saw. The rest of it was
Okay, so
just one half dozen of the others.
let me just back up then, if I can start at the beginning. The red lined areas that I put in
Yep,
that say optional is
Correct.
what I really wanna hit on. And just make sure that I'm on the right track for what the city is interested in allowing. The first subdivision 1-1 says up to 5 female chickens are permitted to be kept on parcels that are within city limits, provided that the owner obtains a backyard chicken permit from the city. Are you fine with 5? Okay. Okay, so that language is good. Subdivision 2-1. The optional language I put in there is a maximum of 5 permits at any one time shall be issued by the city. Are you okay with that? Do you want to restrict it more? Do you want to give it more openness?
no, start with there. 5 is what, I honestly don't think you're gonna see that big of.
Okay. And then in subdivision 2-2, other than Ron's comments about leaving the R1 zones in there, I can omit that language. So it'll say chickens can only be kept on single family residential premises. And omit the zone,
Yeah.
but the language of the minimum lot
Of
size
minimum,
for keeping
yes, lot
chickens
size,
is a
yeah.
7,500 square foot lot. Is that acceptable?
Yep.
Would you rather see it smaller or bigger?
So what's the average size lot, like?
Each of these,
in
each
downtown
of these
proper?
lots is 25 feet, so 2 lots is a 50 by 150.
But that's not very big
No,
space, but.
it's
my-
not.
My neighbor, the chiropractor, has only 2 lots, and that's a very small parcel.
That's why I said, do you want it larger or smaller, or do you want it larger? I think you've got 4. Do you have 4?
But
You have 5.
You gonna put the coop in the middle of your lot or on the edge?
It's in here. It's in the back. Has to be in the back.
It'd be closer to the neighbors than it would be to you.
It's considered in here. Yep. I'll get to that part.
Yep, it's there.
You can fully read it when I get it out there in public.
I've had chickens, I don't want any. Had
Wait for
many.
this public reading.
I've had them out in the country, I have.
Okay,
Do you want it bigger? The minimum size to be bigger.
Is it only one?
What? No, I don't have.
I think that's fine.
Okay. 7,500 is good, okay? And then subdivision 2-2,
The reason, just to add, the reason is what we just touched on, there's all those other setback requirements. So
Mhm.
if they can't meet those, then.
Yeah.
they're not.
correct. Okay, so subdivision 2-3 reads all initial permits will expire on December 31st of the following year after their issuance unless sooner revoked. Renewal permits shall expire on December 31st of each subsequent year unless revoked. Parker's Prairie allows their permits for 2 years. And the cost for initial permits are higher than renewals, so. We can set that fee as well. We can make whatever the fee, the initial fee be what you wish to it, and then the renewal 2 years later can be a lower fee. What you need to keep in mind is that the initial fee would cover the administrative time for me to seek out the applicant's coop and make sure it is in compliance with the permit application. Then the renewal would be less because the coop is already there.
Problem with that.
Okay, so then I can do that. My question back to you is, what kind of fee do you want to set it? Some cities did up per chicken cost. I am more in favor of a flat fee.
yeah, no.
Some, I think Parker's Prairie was $20. Yeah, I don't think many cities had a very large fee at all. Let's see, I'm getting notes on here. Parker's Prairie was $20 for 2 years. Oh, shoot, where is this? I think there's one that's $25 a year for 3 chickens. I don't remember how Wadena was. Midgies were,
Oh, What do you think? $50?
I still think you do less than that. I would say, like, our rental permit is $40 for a rental application for a house. You do not make it more than that. You make it like $20 or $25 for your initial and maybe 10 for the renewal.
Yeah.
Cause the people that are gonna be doing this are gonna be spending enough money on the chickens and the coop to begin with. We don't wanna discourage them by putting the fees too high, because our restrictions in the ordinance, they're gonna
How
need
much
to
time?
comply with.
How much time is it gonna take you to follow through with what you need to do?
That's the thing.
It doesn't-
No idea.
That's
If
what
it's
I
under
was
your
saying.
hourly wage,
I'm-
then it doesn't.
Stepping in it, Nick, I have no idea.
And I have.
Yeah. So,
to check them out.
I mean, I wouldn't do it, I mean, Parker's Prairie is a small town too, I wouldn't do more than $25 for initial and like 10 for a renewal or something like that every 2 years. It just doesn't seem feasible to make it really high. Not when
You should
everything
make it
else.
high. I discourage it.
I'm with you.
Oh, you should see the
I was like,
restrictions
how
I
bad
have
do
in
you want
here.
this?
I know, you should see the restrictions in here though, Misty. I can read the whole thing at some point, it's like, you can't have it, it has to be within X amount of feet, and I haven't even gotten to that page yet.
Yeah.
From your back setback and from another neighboring structure. Okay, you guys chew on that and I'll move forward and just chime in. Standard for keeping of backyard chickens, 3-1. The only optional language I put in there is the maximum height of a run should be 6 feet, but the way the whole language is, and this will help like Misty and is all chickens must be kept in an enclosed chicken coop with an approximate sized chicken run. The maximum height of a run shall be 6 feet. The enclosed coop and run must be maintained in good condition to be sufficient in strength and size to allow the chickens to move about, but also able to prevent escape. Coop shall be constructed in a skillful manner, including being ventilated, insulated, roofed, and constructed of moisture-resistant materials. The enclosed coop must have a minimum square footage of 4 feet per chicken, but not to exceed a total of 20 square feet per chicken. The coop height must be between 4 and 6 feet to allow chickens to roost above ground. The chicken run must have a minimum square footage of 10 square feet per chicken, but not to exceed a total of 50 square feet or 6 feet in height. In the event that the security of the chicken coop is breached, the city shall accept no liability for offense which provided access to the chicken coop. I added that one from another city. I thought that was important. 3-2 states that coops and runs are allowed only in the rear yard. The fence around the run enclosure shall be securely constructed with treated wood, ornamental iron, chain link, that's supposed to say link, sorry, chain link, vinyl or brick. Protective overhead netting or roofing with an approximate material is required to prevent predators. This is the optional language I put in here. Coops and runs must be located at least 6 feet away from the primary structure of the property. Coops and runs must maintain a minimum setback of 10 feet from all property lines and must maintain a minimum setback of 20 feet from all inhabited structures on adjacent properties. I feel like that should stay in there.
Yeah.
I think that this will help some of your guys'
Mhm.
apprehension,
I
neighbors.
think it should stay in. I would suggest one minor revision. I know the Parker's Prairie ordinance says 20 feet from any residential dwelling on any lot, and our ordinance says inhabited structures.
Mhm.
I've read contracts too many decades, and I'm a nitpicker.
Okay,
I wouldn't want to limit it to inhabited. What if it's a residential structure that's vacant? That nobody is living in? Why would somebody be able to violate the 20-foot rule? If it's somebody's, investing in a property for future use or selling it.
Okay.
I would say,
Still be inhabitable.
it says inhabited,
Yeah,
but let's say nobody's there. It's not
let's say
inhabited.
somebody's there the next year. And then you gotta go through everything, right?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, why not just leave it residential structure, leave it happen.
Oh,
I'm just saying to leave it happen. I mean, I'm aware of properties that were vacant for over 10 years. And are now occupied.
I feel like we got that language from another city, Ron.
Yeah.
Give me the levity to look for it.
Yeah, Parker's Prairie says,
You know,
setback of at least 20 feet from any residential dwelling,
Mhm.
which I think my preference would be to have it read that way, so that regardless of whether somebody's in there.
Like says, from any residential structure.
so that would include garages, sheds.
Are we opening ourselves? I think we're opening ourselves out by doing residential structure. Because like you said, you don't have to live in it. I think that's why I put inhabited.
Well, is a garage a residential structure?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an accessory structure to the primary property, kind of primary residence.
You don't live in the garage. Well.
It's not permitted that way.
No.
It's considered an accessory structure in our land use ordinance.
You have a 10-foot setback for that structure.
I can't answer that.
It should be, but
Well, that's what my point is, if you've got the 10-foot setback structure and it's being met, you're really gonna have that in every case anyway.
but this is an old town, what the ordinance says now.
Mhm.
Is probably 50% of them are not in compliance because they predated, been there for years.
So the debate is the language that we have initially in here that says inhabited structures. You would prefer to see it 20 feet from all residential structures? Am I clear?
I would prefer not to limit it to inhabited, yeah. So what do you do about a house that nobody lives in? Property owner may not want a chicken coop next to it until somebody comes, he sells it, or he redevelops it, or he's saving, he's prepping to move here or something like that. Doesn't seem like we should just let somebody ignore the 20-foot rule because it's a house that nobody lives in present.
Because it's vacant, just currently, is that your scenario?
No.
But it would still be residential. And at any given point, inhabited.
Could be.
It's a second, put in all residential structures, I think that's gonna include garages.
Yeah, because people have garages in their backyards, and they probably put their coop off the garage. So you have to live in a house, Most coops have electric in them.
Why don't I get, some feedback from the attorney too?
Maybe you're saying inhabitable instead of inhabited.
Yeah, like,
It's also a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't allow people technically to live in garages anyway, but, we don't have an ordinance against barn dominiums where the residential section has to be a certain number of square footage that you have to live in order for it to be erected. Yet. I'm gonna make that a question then. Ooh, let's see. Skipping down to subdivision 3.5, optional language for consideration, sale of eggs is prohibited.
yep,
Keep it. I would prefer to see
you're,
we keep
you're
it.
raising these for your own personal use, not.
Oh. Okay. Um,
Plants.
Couple other things to note under subdivision 3.7, persons that intend to no longer keep chickens on their premises shall notify the city. If there is a coop, it must be removed upon expiration of the permit, so it's not something that could just hang out forever and dilapidate. That'll help with our blight. Number 8, dead chickens must be disposed of according to Minnesota Board of Animal Health rules, which require chicken carcasses to be disposed of as soon as possible after death, usually within 40 to 72 hours. Acceptable methods of chicken carcass disposal include off-site options, incineration, rendering, composting. City reserves the right to require property owners to eliminate all fowl and poultry within the city limits of a pandemic regarding fowl and poultry is declared. The inspection section I put in that supports all the rest of the buildable stuff, and then I went through the violations section. One of the things I need to get on board with is our police department would end up being
Yeah, I saw
the
that.
department that would do the enforcement. In most cities, it's kind of paired with the dog and cat ordinance, and that's why. So I still have to meet with the police department to make sure that they're on board with that, because they're gonna be taking a number of complaints, I'm sure, if there are any. Violations that I put in there to have optional language, if any person is found guilty by a court violation of the ordinance, this permit to own, keep, harbor, or have custody of chickens shall be deemed automatically revoked, and no new permit may be issued for them for a period of 1 year is what I put in.
Well, if the permit's for 2 years, I put 2 years in.
Good point. Or maybe we make it longer.
Yeah, it's one and done. You screw up, that's it.
It's done, yeah,
Yeah, because you gotta get rid of your chicken coop if you don't have chickens,
yep.
you know?
So I'll do 2 years. Okay. Any person violating any conditions of the permit shall reimburse the city for all costs borne by the city to enforce the conditions of the permit, including but not limited to pickup and impounding the chickens, cost of inspection due to complaint regarding policy violation shall be paid by the owner. What else did I have? The enforcement, I already talked to you guys about. For those of you in the audience that were interested in the other stuff for the permit, I think I covered all the location stuff in subdivision 3. So that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, the application has a section where they would have to fill out a diagram of where the group would be with the application, so that I have an idea of where it's gonna be located, spelling out the setbacks, the number of chickens they want.
I have a question.
Great,
You're gonna allow 5 permits total, that's it?
that's what I have in the language right now.
Okay, so with that, if it's just 5 permits. If you buy a permit and it's for 2 years, that's what I'm hearing.
That's what we're considering.
So do you have the first option to renew your permit? Or can someone swoop in and get a permit and now you gotta get rid of all your chicken stuff?
No, it would be first come, first served for the renewal.
Okay, so on that end,
Mm-hmm.
the 5 people that get them are gonna constantly renew them and nobody else is allowed to have chickens?
That's what that does, yeah.
Something to think about.
Yep.
Yeah, you maybe can see how it goes.
Well, I'm not changing this.
Well,
You guys,
that's a
you
good
can't just
question.
see how it goes.
No,
That's why the language is
but
in
he has a
there.
good point.
Mm-hmm.
If failure to renew, what, in a timely manner, you know, oh, hell, hey, I gotta renew my chicken permit, but it's 2 months late.
Not my problem.
Still leaves a bunch of people not, I mean, if you're only giving out 5.
Yeah.
How many residential houses, whatever you wanna call it, are in town? There's a lot more than 5.
Mhm.
You're only gonna get out 5 and that's just gonna be it forever. I would rethink that myself.
To be honest, I don't know that you find 5 people with chickens.
Then I would just be done with this whole conversation.
I agree. But you guys wanted, you wanted me to start it, so. I don't know how Nick feels, so
You can't even keep track of people's dogs, how do you keep track of people's
Mhm.
chickens?
I would like.
limiting them to 5, hopefully.
Would like to see how many complaints do you get before you have to stop too? And do you have to, I didn't see anything about your Jason neighbor's request.
Nope, I didn't put that in there.
I think that should
Okay,
That should be a requirement.
There's no roosters.
Parker's Prairie limited to 5, is that where you're getting 5 from? What's the population of Parker's Prairie?
smaller than us.
That's 5 permits or 5 chickens?
5 permits. 5 chickens.
5 permits and 5 chickens.
It will make finding stray other animals easier to find, because they'll be by those chicken coops. So you might save some money that way.
My mistake, the 5 permits is from a different town. Not easy when you have multiple ordinance versions that you're working on, Mike.
That's all right, I just was wondering if that's for the,
I think that was Detroit Lakes. That had the number of permits.
Detroit Lakes,
Mhm.
only 5?
Wow, that seems like very.
Pretty sure. Oh,
Last time the permits they issued.
you do that.
Maybe 0.
Compiling 5 different cities' ordinances is not easy. Thank you very much.
Like, so Mickey has like. But you can say like 10 people in the city proper that had chickens. They actually have a enforcement guy down there,
Mm-hmm.
David.
I don't remember his business card's name, yeah.
He said most of the people adhere to what the city put forward.
So, is that the feedback you needed, Christina?
Well, yeah, and I'm still working on the violation portion that Nick requested too. I know that there's some language in the Detroit Lakes ordinance that I did read in regarding to, you know, what's the repercussions and how many do you need? But I'll have to do a little bit more digging before I get to that. I mean, what do you think would be reasonable, Nick? 2 warnings, a violation, because I do have in here 5.1 that says any person violating any section of this ordinance shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor. And that gives us the right to revoke the permit. So that's immediate. But is that reasonable for you?
Yeah.
If you want to see other language, I can entertain a couple other options. Because I can see where some people would misread that as, well, I'll just pay my fine and I'll be fine. And then I can keep going with my chickens,
Yeah.
right? It's like getting a speeding ticket or getting a warning for getting a speeding ticket. I'll look into some other language, okay?
Let me find out if it's regular or extra.
So let me just retrace back to Mike's comment about the number of permits. With his feedback, are you still okay with the language? I don't know if we really nailed on that one or not. Yeah, it is Parker's Ferry, a maximum of 5 permits at any one time will be issued. 5 chickens, 5 permits, 25 chickens.
There's the only thing I can think of is if you only do give out 5 permits and then say half of the city council has permits, is that gonna be?
A conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Sure is, but
Well, don't worry,
they still gotta comply with all the permitting stuff, so. I don't see it as a conflict if they're, no,
Combined, but
no. Knowledge is power, right? Well, it is, and you wanna do your homework to find out if you can do something, you get in there. Okay. Done for a little bit on this,
well, yeah.
the draft,
Yeah.
it won't be ready by the 7th.
And we
Or the 5th.
No, I was gonna say, we'll see another one at the next work session.
Yep.
Okay. Audit,
You will have a presentation of the draft from Chris Blackduck from CLA at the May 5th council meeting.
You'd be on video.
No, he'll be here. It's a draft because that's all they'll have ready and that otherwise it would be he can't be here to the work session, which is later in the month, which would give him more time to have a final, but he really wants to be here to provide it to you guys, so it should be for the most part done at that point.
okay. So we'll look for that meeting,
Yep.
the Boys and Girls Club request.
So now that Andrew Kent and Nicole were here to provide that beautiful presentation at the last meeting, it's a good idea for the city to have open dialogue about their funding request. I did reach out to Nicole to find out who her contact was from the city of Bemidji in regards to their commitment. And she emailed me back and she said Bemidji is not one of the local governments that provided funding to them. So they're pulling together some samples of regional cities that do. She noted that the main reason Bemidji is not doing it is because most of their proceeds from the liquor store go to the Sanford Center, which is owned by the city. So, and that tracks. I also went and emailed Mary Ipple, who's our bond counsel attorney, because my biggest concern is that we would be taking public funds and giving it to an organization, and I don't know if that's allowable. She did email me back today and said statute does allow for the city to do it for a not-for-profit or a senior center or a youth center. But it's not limited to just liquor store revenues. You can levy for it. But, and I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys, I have a really hard time with the ask. I realize it is the ask and they're shooting for the moon. However, my biggest concern is that we have a very large campus of industrial property that needs to flip. That is a huge section of our tax base. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next year. And if we committed liquor store revenues, that's just gonna take away from the commitment that we have to our general fund. that's providing essential services to the city and to offset our own debt and our own entity and departments, like the golf course. So you can't just say, well, let's just, expect more out of the liquor store, because then the liquor store will hurt. So the only other option in my mind is if we have money left over from liquor rent donations, we could provide that, but we can't make a commitment at this point unless you guys are committed to raising the levy. But that's from my position of this. I'm looking for your feedback after the presentation, because I know we all love and big hearts about the Boys and Girls Club, and they've done a great thing for the community, and they have. But we're tapped out, you guys.
$10,000 a year for a 5-year commitment, that's huge for.
That's
what
huge.
We have.
Yeah, it is not the function of a city government to levy taxes of people, usually against their will, and then hand them out to nonprofits that the city deems acceptable, when it may not be the opinion of the taxpayer within the city limits. That's acceptable.
I mean,
I would
Case
agree with you.
case in point, look how long it took us just to get a sales tax revenue for our library,
And everything else got turned down.
and everything else got turned down.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sales pitch from Boys and Girls Clubs, very nice organization, should be to the citizens of Blackduck and the surrounding townships, not just the folks within 854 people within the city limits. So my belief is that we have a budget for these donations, which is based on historically what the donations, such as the next item here, the after prom request, the amounts that we give them each year, our budget for the following year is based on that roughly, right? So, and I think the entire budget annually for everybody that requested is less than 10,000, is it not?
Yeah, I think I put $6,000 in there.
Yeah.
Every year.
So the 10,000
You
is
guys went a little bit over, huh?
out of the ballpark. The only way I would be agreeable to doing this is if we got them in under the existing budget, and we'd have to reduce other requests amount, so. I don't see how it's,
Even cutting everybody else off, you still wouldn't get to that.
Yeah.
10.
even if we wanted to make it 1,000,
Yeah.
I'm not, we have a budget and we should not go over that this year because we've noted the largest employer in town is, I believe, not existent as of this date, is it correct? I don't know what, it was in April sometime. but-
April 30th,
The 30th.
we only got another week.
Yeah, so. Our revenues aren't increasing, they're gonna go down, including the gambling revenue, because people don't go to the liquor store and gamble, and we're not gonna get that money, so. I don't see how a new requester can be accommodated at this point.
Maybe we can do a dump tank every night. Dump an air for $5.
Well, they need to get creative and come up with their own funding, essentially is what this is. It's brand new to the town, and I don't know how they can turn around and start asking for that size of donation or of any sorts. I mean,
I think as a township, I think we gave them a little bit of money, nothing close to 10,000. I wanna say it was 500, like that. We just, we give so much every year to 3 or 4. Want to say they were one of them this year. I might be wrong about that. So a one-time donation to me would be more feasible. Not a commitment for years.
well, and when
Not
I'm
a
hearing that
mortgage.
they're applying for these grants and stuff and they're waiting to hear back from a grant, I don't see why or how, I don't see how you guys would give it to start with, but then how do you know what their grant money is gonna be? And that's what they should be doing. They're a nonprofit. They should be going for these grants.
Yeah, I think that Nikki,
Mhm.
yeah, I think she was good doing the grant writing
Mhm.
or whatever,
They're waiting to see on one.
yeah.
Maybe July.
But they knew that going in.
Mhm.
That the upfront money was for 2 years, so they knew that going in.
And this is just the first school year that it's been open, so they have enough money to operate for another whole year.
And I know they're
based on-
shooting
based
for the
on what
moon.
they, yeah, cause they had a 2-year grant, so basically,
Then if you could afford 30 kids, keep it at 30 kids. If you can't, if you wanna sit there and keep saying we wanna keep increasing this to 60 kids and then now 90 kids, you can't afford that, so you can't do that.
Yeah.
I wanna rebuild the whole kitchen at the golf course, but I can't afford that, and I'm not gonna come here and ask you guys for $10,000 commitment every year. It's no different. We have to live within our means.
Yeah, and well, the biggest, excuse me, the biggest concern right now, like Christine brought up was. We're all gonna be feeling a pinch here before we know it.
Well,
Unless
yeah.
something,
Unless.
we should be
Yeah.
prepared to be pinched, let's put it that way.
Cause the shared cost of the levy is gonna get spread out amongst everybody else. I mean, yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen with the campus for the shade store. Somebody might take it over and the shade store will probably be good on their property taxes for this year and maybe next year, depending if it sells. But that should be the focus of our, you know, helping whatever we can do to get that campus filled again. What we're able to do. Not committing to giving out money that we don't know is even coming in.
Right.
The best thing we can do is everybody is when they hold something, we need to encourage everyone to participate in it. If they do a spaghetti feed, or if they do,
Yeah.
if they're talking about doing this raffle, like a type of gun raffle,
Yeah.
we need to participate, and we need to encourage people to go and spend the $200 there. And
Yes.
Makes a lot more sense.
that's what we should be doing as a community.
You're right.
And that's just then the townships, you know, Pine Summit, Taylor Bird, all of them, everybody. You know, it does serve more than just the city of Blackduck proper.
Much more, I mean, think of where people live,
Where-
the students
and-
at school that are served,
And that's,
the minority of them live within.
you know,
the
they
city.
need perhaps also to get out there and approach those township boards. And
And the residents of the townships,
Mike, have you guys seen one out there, a presentation by the?
They
board?
they haven't presented with us with anything, I know that, but I don't know
See.
how, seems like. I might be wrong, but they might have approached Daryl. Maybe, I'm not sure about that,
Okay.
don't quote me on that, but
But
for some reason, we decided to give them like. 400 or 500.
Carol Lumberg's wife also brought it to town.
isn't she like the board of directors of the Boys and
She's
Girls Club?
part of the, United Way.
I think she has something to do with
Yeah.
the Boys and Girls Club.
I think so.
She does.
so with all this and it's fine, what do we wanna do?
Well, you're gonna have to table it. I mean, there wouldn't even been a conversation until we get to our budget meetings
So
for 26 anyway.
then let's table it till after that.
I mean, I don't see where you guys could authorize anything right now outside of what Ron stated with our local liquor rent
Right.
donations.
and I'm not suggesting that, I'm not saying we should reduce somebody else's.
No,
That's-
that was not
Yeah.
not what I meant by that.
I
Yeah.
think we should keep doing what we've been doing
Mhm.
with these smaller organizations like After Prom, and Toys for Tots, or whatever they call it again.
Mhm.
Encourage everyone, if folks think that's a worthy cause, the Boys and Girls Club, I mean, I've got a wallet, I've got a checkbook.
Mhm.
When the Blackduck area Toys for Kids come here, I throw my wallet open and give them, some stuff, because I believe in that organization, so. I think the club is able to approach people individually with mailers or whatever and make their pitch.
You know, they have the big gala in Bemidji, but that's for the Bemidji's Boys and Girls Club.
Mhm.
That big fundraiser they have there, I mean, it's huge and they make a lot of money.
They're planning something in October, because they asked about using the golf course. And they want to run something that's similar to like a
Similar.
Ducks Unlimited or something similar to that, where they could actually like do like gun raffles, and they want to put a big tent outside and things like that. And I'm all for that. That's you put the sweat into it and make
Wow.
people come, you know, I think that's great.
Didn't-
Yeah. And they also are getting some of the funds from the Chamber of Commerce is doing, a scramble. They're getting some of that and they're also planning their own scramble. So they are, I mean, they are doing stuff, but that's where people need to come and support it. You know, go buy a ticket or come golf or sponsor a hole or whatever you can do in those ways because they'll get the proceeds from that.
I don't fault them for making the ask and shooting for the moon, though. I mean, I realize that's what they have to do. That is how they raise their money, but in our position, it's not something we can commit to. Not without jeopardizing something else.
Well, we don't know what's going on with the federal government yet, so, you know. What's gonna get cut and what's not gonna get cut. And so. How much money the city's gonna end up getting. Under LGA.
LGA is state run, not federal.
Well, I mean, doesn't it all trickle down?
No, you go to other states and they don't pay property taxes and stuff like that, so, no. Well, that's all state legislated through the run.
All right. Then. At this time, you have to deny that.
Okay.
Request. Do you want to formally deny it on? at the council?
No, I will just email Andrea and Nicole right now, and just tell them at the time. We'll discuss it at the budget meeting, but we don't have the funding to commit in 2025. Would be unknown. I'll just email it to them.
I think lots of the kids are, like that.
And for whatever reason, the AfterCom is not public here. There it is.
Your new computer, your computer's outdated.
Yeah.
So Medline, sent me her condolences, but the after prom committee is actually meeting tonight, so this conflicted. She would have been the one to, present the request for tonight from after prom. You can see the attachment, obviously it wouldn't get approved until the May meeting anyway. So, she said if you guys have any questions, I can call her. But she couldn't be present, so this is, you know, a repeat, like Ron had mentioned earlier, in the previous years. The city's committed $1,000 out of the liquor rent fund towards this, event for, after prom. Looks like this year they're gonna have a magician. I paid very close attention to this.
No hypnotist.
Must not be a hypnotist this year.
Well, there have been hypnotists in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do a lot of prizes for the kiddos. It's a safe, you know, thing for them to do after prom is done. Been going on for,
A really long. night
long
for
time.
parents.
so, I can provide you guys the history of the donation to consider what you'd like to provide at the May 5th meeting.
Yep, sounds good. I find that very helpful, you know, to get the past donations
Okay.
attachment when you put it on the
Okay, I will
agenda.
do that.
And,
I didn't give the budget of what we've already done because we haven't committed anything for this year, but I will do,
yeah, 'cause I'm,
history.
you know, providing it's appropriate to what we've given in the past, and I believe, like I said, our budget is based on the total of those past donations.
We can do that.
Ordinance, rentals.
So last year I updated the rental licensing ordinance to do a few updates. And I should have made some of these changes at the same time, so. Historically, in our ordinance, we do our rental inspections on every even year, so they're biannual inspections. but we've done the permits every year. And in speaking with Paige and, our rental inspector, going forward with the changes we made last year, it would be more timely if we change our ordinance to provide the permit coinciding with completing and passing the inspection. So I want to change the language so that the permits will be issued after the rental inspection is done, and they'll be 2-year permits. That way, we're only doing it once in the even years instead of
Okay.
opposites. It just kind of helps for our tracking purposes for the city. So I've updated,
A little less time consuming too.
I've updated some language on a couple of the sections for the registration and the renewal, and that's the premise of this. It's pretty simple, it's just we, as a city, changed our rental inspection timeline to biannual back in 2015. That used to be every year, and that got really costly and repetitive. So we, as the city, changed it to every 2 years, but we never did the permits at the same time, and we really just should have. So I'm asking for you guys' support so that I can make this amendment.
Yep.
Pretty simple.
It makes sense.
It sucks that I should have done it last year when I did all the rest of the stuff, but I didn't, so it's just one more little section to tweak.
Well, how many times you read that, you wouldn't think that it would be necessary.
Oh, I know.
You know, unless you're the one doing it. Yeah. You know, we can sit here and read it, but it's.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
on to item C. Mr. Murray.
Yes. We're talking about 356 Summit Avenue.
Correct, sir.
There's a vacant lot directly north.
For those of us that can't quite visualize it, what is the cross street on Summit?
Here, let me just give you this. Maybe-
I've got it up on the screen there, Ron, but
Oh.
that's close as I can get. Go ahead.
Is that the one in the middle?
Mhm.
Oh, that's Preston Anderson's former house?
Well, next
I
door,
don't know that.
Couldn't tell you.
I bought it from Bill,
but yes, you're right, it was Preston.
Yeah, Preston Maxine.
I don't know if that'll help.
I know, I only know who lived there 50 years ago, so. If you'd have said Preston Anderson's house. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the one next to it. Not
So-
Preston, no.
What I would like to do is buy the lot directly north of it and this alley. Because number one, the curb's not cut out for an alley. And when my grandkids are there and stuff like that, and they walk out this door, and what if somebody turns off the street and runs down the damn alley? Even though there's a curb there, but legally they could do that or come from the north and come down and come right out. It's just not a practical thing. I have talked to, Christina told me a long time ago, I can't remember how long ago it was, probably a year.
Like once a year for the last 2 years. I think.
That would have
You've not
been-
been talking about this.
We meet annually then, I guess.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yep.
she told me to talk to this guy about it, which I did this afternoon. He doesn't care. The only thing his concern is you can't see it, but about here, there's a power pole there. And I don't know why, but he's saying if it involves moving that, which it wouldn't, or something happens to that, he would want to know about that. So. My only question with buying this alley is I don't really have a preference, but would you want to go straight across from this boundary? Or this boundary here could go and have a little corner there? Something like that. To me, it's apples for apples, but I mean, if that's the request. I want to go this way, by the way. The alley, I don't want to buy the whole thing because these people use it up here to turn into the garages. I just want to go to right here. And another reason I want to do it is when you guys plow the snow, it gets piled here and guess where the water runs? Right into that crawl space. So maybe we could just move that pile back a little bit. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's,
I don't know how much money you're talking about or anything like that, or if you are talking about selling it even. But that's the request.
Well, I would like to consult with our city attorney to see if that's, what's feasible.
yeah, vacate.
The right of way, to the west is a platted alley,
Mhm.
and then to the east,
Platted alley needs to,
it's also a platted alley because of the way that that road was done.
because of the way the additions went in.
The additions went in, yeah,
The right
thank
of way,
you.
yeah, the
Mike.
right of way to the west is an actual
That runs the.
used alley, right? It's
Correct.
dirt, then people use it, whereas,
We use it. It's the only access we have to
yeah,
the,
the right of
to
way
the garage.
that you're talking about is really, as you said, there's no curb cut out and it's not used as a throughway.
Right.
It's an odd setup.
Yeah, it's kind of scary that the property line too goes through the house, but you know, that's kind of different.
That it does.
I don't see how a house was ever built there, but it was
Well-
squeezed in.
We're not gonna share the towels with those people, by the way, just so you know.
No,
So you're,
a lot of those in town though, where
Yeah,
the
there is.
house is right on the property
I've
line,
looked through it.
yep.
so you don't own either of these properties currently, you wanna purchase the one that you
Yes,
spoke about, okay, yeah, because Preston's house, what I was talking about is the one to the east of that there,
yeah.
on the diagonal.
Mike's right in the middle, and he
Yeah.
wants the piece just
Mhm.
north of it.
Yeah.
The north and little piece west. You know, I don't, it's hard to see that, I don't know if you can see it up there and zoom in, but right about,
Oopsie, sorry,
whoops,
I'm trying to bring it back up so that. I can
right about
calculate it.
here, that's the sidewalk that was there at one time. It's out in the alley, what is called an alley.
Okay.
So I don't know what the thinking was back then, but, well,
Yeah,
back
it's
up,
right
like-
away on both, it's right away on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
but I understand it further north on the alley because I don't know the people's names, but
Used to
the,
be Slindy's place.
yeah, the two people use it, you know, for their garages.
Yeah.
I don't need to do anything to that.
Yeah. Can't figure out why that was plotted out that way. The only thing I can think of is historically, it was a rail spur and they had access on both of it, because if you follow that down to the railroad.
It's the exact same if you look north of there, across that street.
Yeah.
If you look to the north, it's the same there.
Yeah.
It's all because of the way the additions, from what I've been told by the old timers, the way they did the additions to town, that's how the double alley ended up being the way it is. You zoom out and look to the north of Margaret there, you can see it's the same way.
Straight
going
north,
towards
yeah.
the ball field.
That help?
so the big question here is,
It's became a challenge, hasn't it? You're gonna get it.
I found the button I was missing earlier. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you just want to go from here to Summit. You want this section.
Yes,
Okay, because and I'm not.
that and this.
Oh,
he wants to buy that.
I want this and this. There's two little pieces.
so yeah, there's two things that I see that we would have to figure out legally. First of all, and I know you've already talked to Conkey, is you'd have to give, legally, the city would have to give all the surrounding property owners the opportunity that's abutting it, the opportunity to have shared ownership to it. And if they all say no, then yes, there could be an opportunity for that. But I need to clarify that with the city attorney. This portion here is, if that's platted right away, that could probably just be vacated.
It's not, that's that piece that we just got.
Oh, shoot, you're right. I forgot about that already.
It's the piece that we just went through all that to get a year, 2 years ago now, maybe?
Yeah.
Cause it went on tax forfeiture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shoot, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case. And the city chooses to release it because the city has no use for it. But we wouldn't have gotten it if we didn't find a use for it, then yes. You could potentially consider selling it. But I've never gone through that process except these two pieces of property, and I don't know if we would have to list it or give the public, anybody, the opportunity to buy it. That's why when you do a vacation of a right of way, you're doing it for, you know, the people that are abutting it, but when you do something publicly for anybody to chime in to purchase, it has to be, I think it has to be put on the market.
What do we find out for?
Well, there's a lot of questions here. would
I
have
don't
to
know if
find
it
out.
matters, but that piece was part of the piece that I owned originally. I don't know how it got let go, but if that,
Well,
if that's,
It got separated out years ago. from
Yeah.
that
yeah, I mean,
property.
Bill that I bought the place from told me that I think it was his mother-in-law or somebody that had lived there at one time, owned both of them, and she let the one go for some reason. Let the north one go. I don't know
Before it
why.
got let go this last time, it was attached to one of the houses or on the west side of the alley there. The last thing it was attached to.
can I have one of your sheets,
Mhm.
just so that I have the same, I'm on the same page and you are.
Which one would you like?
I'm gonna scribble on it,
Okay.
so.
You
want
need that
this?
one? I just read them off.
It's okay.
You want-
And you want this. I'm gonna have to ask the attorney. You want this, because this is you, and you want this.
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
So basically you wanna own the whole area between the two alleys all the way up to Margaret.
No.
No,
Nope.
no,
Stop this.
he would
You gotta
stop at the
stop.
north boundary of four two four.
That
or
wouldn't be
396 on that.
allowable, I
Well,
would
I know
think.
you wanna, I'm not talking about vacating the alley, but there's a parcel that says 356 there in the middle where the house is.
Yep.
That's him,
Do you want to attach the middle property to the north of there?
yeah,
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
yeah, that's owned by the city
Yeah.
right now.
as well as the
Straight
platted
east,
alley
straight,
section that's.
straight east of the house,
Yeah,
basically.
that's adjacent to your house and the neighbors
Mhm.
there.
Share your phone number with me when we could adjourn, okay?
What's that?
Share your phone number and your contact information with me again when we adjourn. You
Okay.
don't need to do it right now, but before you leave. I'll look into it and provide the council options.
Okay.
But
If we know we can.
I
obviously,
mean, if we bought that,
it's ours, but it's.
if we bought that section to the north of it, we bought it for a reason. Are we saying we have no reason for it now?
We got it because it was on tax forfeiture, and part of the reason that we got it was actually to alleviate the snow that was getting put on that house from trying to plow that alley, because the house is right on the alley. But when that alley gets plowed, it gets plowed from south to north, and then you unload the snow over on that open empty lot right there, because what we said is that that lot is too small to ever be buildable again with ordinances nowadays. So we were gonna try to use it for snow for there, and the other side, the goofy alley portion, that gets plowed coming in from the north. And what we were trying to do there is
Yeah.
unload as much snow onto that lot as possible before we had to go down and put it in that pile.
I
Okay,
can,
so
I
what-
can see that's what they've done when I,
Yep. That's
what
what we've
Mike-
been trying to do with that. That's
So
the
what
whole
Mike
reason
has
I
just
pushed
said-
for that lot.
Here's the thing you have to think about. We don't own that anymore. We have no rights to being there anymore if we go forward with this. What is the alternative
to what you're doing right now with the snow?
There's gonna end up getting a lot of snow on the house, unfortunately.
So can I ask a question? So you plow that alley, like, it used to be Slendy's place, but it's. Mindy
Conky's.
getting food.
Oh, big.
Is
yeah,
that where you're
Mindy
coming
Gate.
in from and you're plowing behind her place?
That's, she's on the street. This is the alley.
If the alley's behind her, that's how she drives in.
Yeah.
No, it's Brandy.
Oh,
Randy,
Atkinson.
yeah.
No, Bakley's on the.
No,
other side.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about. You come in there and plow just a little ways in there for them?
Yeah, because there's two people that have garages back there.
Brandy and
It's our
the
alley.
Jason that lives in this house.
What if you vacated the whole thing and made them responsible for it?
Can't, no,
You can't?
no, we've already given them access, we can't just take it away.
Right.
That's too bad.
And you set a precedence by plowing that way too.
But then it's
So-
always gonna keep him wet.
Well, that was part of getting that lot, that the last, what? Winter, maybe 2 winters now, there's been a lot less snow in that
Yeah.
pile than there ever was before. Cause we're trying to push it into that lot that we have.
You know, you could use that lot for a citywide chicken coop.
How about a dog park? Somebody else said they wanted a dog park.
Dog park.
Down the rabbit hole we go. Oh, I'm sorry, down the chicken hole we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
But I'm serious. This is something the city has to consider. I mean, if we take that away and it's private now, we don't have access to get on there. So what do we do? How does Public Works
Well-
solve the problem then?
I understand your point. I see what you're saying.
Mhm. We have to
The
think
alleyway to
forward.
the alleyway straight east of the house, to me, is not the same circumstance as that lot.
Probably not.
The alleyway east to the house, I think, is more of a, really a no-brainer. Nobody wants people driving through there or be able to.
It's not currently gravel or dirt, I think it's.
No,
just a lawn.
we mow it,
Yeah, I mean, anyone driving by would assume that's part of a lawn.
yes.
They wouldn't be cruising up somebody's lawn, actually.
Yes.
Whereas the alleyway to the west is clearly gravel or.
Yes.
dirt, yeah.
No.
I'll try to get some legal feedback and to see what we can do. And then we'll
Yes.
have to go back to you guys for
Yep.
discussion again.
Okay, one second.
Or if you can't.
Well, we can, this is a matter of how, right?
Well, if there's utilities under there and all that other kind of stuff, I mean, right of ways typically are vacated, they're not sold.
And property, so the one that has a lot. Parcel.
Okay.
Don't start somewhere.
All right. Nick?
Are you saying motion to adjourn?
Could be. Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Oh,
to
okay.
adjourn, I'll just.
I will second that.
There we go, we're all in favor, we stand adjourned.
No, because there's an additional plat to it. Mike,
Yep, so you got it.
Mike.